site is it for? Lawrence, what site is it for?
What site?
The video.
Right.
Most likely. I mean, I don't know where else to put it.
Well, it's a different height, and I don't want to have to like switch.
And then like I tell him to go to the room. I tell him to go watch the other room, the other set. So he's like, then I see him in here fucking 10 minutes later.
Other Sims is Davey versus
Yeah.
Davey versus who?
Highland Park.
Texas?
Yeah.
I know, the video.
Yeah, it seems.
Yeah. No, I know.
That side of the record seems.
Oh, I know. I
And
agree.
now it's confirmed.
That Davey team is the one that always goes for like necro and death.
No, they're not.
Really?
Yeah, they're construct calls. They're pretty good. I mean, I judge them a lot because they're local. And, for a while, they deserve to have breakouts for my years. But I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
That being said. And then Highland Park team as a freshman. So it's
God.
like,
Oh god.
No, this Highland Park team. One of them was carrying the shit. Like they're both decent. They're both very good debaters.
the non-freshman debate with
It's
Harris just doesn't do it for
well, if the non-freshman was a
Oh,
sophomore, if the non-freshman was a
Were you
sophomore,
guys doing an email chain?
they might win it.
yeah.
that's what I was saying. That's what I was
I mean,
saying.
I get
You
what
put
you're
me on
saying.
it?
Yeah. I mean, like I have your milk.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I just wanted to make sure I was on it.
Yes, all of you are on it.
Well,
Who
I
won
would
Harris?
so she was kind of like 80% of the.
Yeah.
And like, I was just
Is there an email chain?
Yeah.
Are you on it?
You're already on it.
I haven't gotten it.
What?
I haven't gotten it. So.
Well, I'm getting a sending message, which
Oh,
And then,
let me check my Wi-Fi.
He's on.
By the way, Scott, what app are you all running?
For policy?
Yeah, for policy.
It's a new app.
well, this round,
No, in general. In general. I'm not interested in this round.
Against policy teams, usually the establishes a diplomatic hotline between China and the US.
Okay.
Alright, I just got it.
No, the reason why I'm asking is because I'm coaching Beacon now.
There's nothing attached.
And they're
I didn't get it.
they're all in policy. So I'm coaching policy now. And I'm just like trying. One of the things I want to do at this point is like sort of scope out the topic a little bit more and like
Yeah.
what our team's running.
You
what
mean
our team's
TW, right? Because the other teams are already different apps.
Yeah.
What?
You mean TW, right? Because the other teams are different apps.
Yeah. What? I mean, it could be other teams. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, TW, they have the red page. Well, this will be the 5th app they've read,
Holy crap.
but the one they've read against most policy teams is this top one.
Okay. Well, what's the kid after sophomores?
The girls are reading this like SCS, solve strategic ambiguity, and it's
Okay.
like saying it's the boys are reading Africa public health diplomacy.
So basically, there's just a bajillion different apps on this topic.
Yeah,
And everybody's sort of
and,
thinking into it.
and Brian at school are reading.
I have seen the topic.
No, I know how that was like.
Yeah.
They're reading like hypersonic, some kind of like hypersonic monitoring agreement.
So then, what are the negative generics or what appeasement?
I don't know, just a lot. Most of the ads are just kind of different flavors of impact terms to relations.
Okay.
Because a lot of apps have they have like the real advantage, and then they have like the real advantage, and they have the relational advantage to create some.
Try it now.
We good?
Could be.
So they have,
Email's being weird, but I think I fixed it.
And then they have to kind of read relations to generate solvency deficits to utilize.
Okay. Okay. So it's usually it's Unilike counterplans and then impact terms to relations is like a lot of what people do.
I think so. Appeasement's tough because there's no uniqueness.
Are people running it on case?
they better. I mean, that's what we faced last round. And they better use his counter plan. His counter plan only banned the app, and or like it got rid of the military version. Like so there's already a military outline, but not a diplomatic outline. They got rid of the military one, but like there's still like the U.S. Like, it doesn't change the general posture of the U.S. towards China's economic engagement.
Right.
So it seems like
Not as
Is it
much.
just your nuclear renaissance app or your app?
I mean, it's not new, but it's a different app. It's the Russia one.
Let's do it.
We good?
The resolution is quite state obligation. State was empowered to prohibit nuclear power for practice, legal obligation, but they do essentially different hosts of police and military to rescue civilians. Don't this is different for individual one. The state doesn't pass it down. Doesn't have any tax sense. Policymakers pass laws for different reasons. Doesn't have reflex capacity of individuals. It can't be valid in terms of the policymakers have to use util good. Public officials make their choices under uncertainty. Private individuals have more complete information on their own circumstances, ramifications, and just might have public officials relatively important for what they know are average and aggregates. Policymakers use utils. The standard is minimizing suffering first, which preserves our ability to find future moral truths. Postrum, a 12-hour presidential might be confused. We may not know what it would be. We will count as big winner. We are uncertain about our aims. Ensure there will be a future for humanity. The best way to increase possibility of the future will contain value. And the second role plays government key to role in education. 3 unique reasons. 299 debate is role playing institutions. Helps students understand different perspectives, developing policies, consequences of the gives students benefits. Makes them actively engage with becomes students local advocates. Given a greater insight to the rules, elements face also makers realize the capacity of applying implementing law becomes often familiar with contemporary issues on foreign policy, plan, tax, countries on prohibit the production of Russian state-owned nuclear power. Blonde 15. This game that Robert Russian should be considered any country that is associated with Russia most is after pursuing nuclear countries around the world. And warning is something that countries should heed. And Russian nuclear empires on the rise now. Crave 16. Russian is making commitments to build nuclear reactors plants. A country of the world, Russia side war. The construction of 36 reactors overseas is holding inconsistent nuclear use for the Russia sees looking for is new business opportunities for it to end in the nuclear industry. And Lawrence Zhou is terrible safety issues, environmental degradation, prolific, massive corruption, all rich, all 14. Russian safety directions, most little change within Russia. They have countries which exports for corruption with the company cashier self legally. Russian government usually a violation of recurring and Russian projects of characterized by lack of quality control, safety, suspect fuel, reprocessing, release of radioactivity in the environment, as well as major risk of fast food programs, greater risk of proliferating company, the company's nuclear expansion pose unacceptable risk to communities, and accidents cause mass death and huge financial costs. So colloid, 76 nuclear accidents accounted for 41% of all accident-related property damage with one incident and $332 million in damage every year. Conservative estimates find that nuclear power accidents kill 4,100 people or more. The from those 2025 release of forces core accidents will occur. There may be no feasible way to design around these risks. So advantage one is U.S. has Russia, and the U.S. are breaking out their test nuclear energy. Each trying to prove their dominance to get an edge over the other. Kelly 10-5. Russia controls the co-option for U.S. and the nuclear energy spending research center. During one research, Uranium University, Russian government said as countermeasure U.S. sanctions as well, putting aside nuclear as we should pass. We can no longer trust Washington modernization security of nuclear facilities. And U.S. and Russia fight for influence in the Middle East is highly unstable with power capable of flipping into side clapper. 9-8 American influence right no in the Middle East could still slip after Israel and Palestinian agreed to Russian organized attacks from Syria. Washington pleaded for Russia ceasefire. This is obviously the U.S. has been unable to secure a quick victory. And the U.S. has lost hope of Saudi Arabia. And now he's trying to be back in Iranian initiative. Moscow meeting reinforcing President Moscow was a key player in the exploited the vacuum. The Obama administration is created and Rosenstone active favor of increasing Russian influence over the Middle East. Iran at all 15. Russia is not a new in the civilian nuclear market in the Middle East. But the desires of Moscow and countries to become in the region cooperating to become acute this offensive with the Russian efforts to strengthen the ties of the country serve as Russia's objectives and taking leading role in the region. And every nuclear reactor that goes up sinks U.S. influence in the region further. Stratford 15. Russia's bitter standards to the U.S. exporting nuclear. Russia's enemies concerning influence nuclear power. There's just providing a measure of political strength. Russia attempts to maintain its half in the Middle East. The Russian experts have veto Russian first because of attractive financing. Russia was brought down. The development costs essentially a new business model which Russia builds its own operates facilities and gives Russia more foothold in the country to building other facility and importing material nuclear power supposed to augment Russia's global influence. And U.S. leadership in the Middle East solidifies international peace. Loss of influence causes war on the globe. Leads to extinction. Bresler 15. American leadership recommended another great power with the U.S. negotiating defense treaties. And in the Middle East, the U.S. has assisted the negotiating peace treaties between Israel and Egypt. There have been a steady American retreat from leadership. Russia and are asserting hegemonic claims to you want to help us against Russian aggression, support Syria, Libya, IS, Saudi Arabia, British Gulf states are essentially Christianity, the freedom American provided assistance to the U.S. Against slip and shadows, more punks, danger, war increases, advantage use Belarus, Lithuania. Belarus and the Lithuanian relations are rocky now. Time is running out before Lithuania lashes out against the Russian-built power plant Sputnik 829. Lithuania's head of state is hostile to Belarus stressing it, and Putin's construction amounts to nuclear terrorism websites in West Virginia. Nuclear decision against the planet. Belarus will not have a more contrast with Lithuania. All the plans is left for Lithuania to engage in hysterics towards Russia and its partners. And Belarus is a critical country in Russia's plans. They are key to security asset in Eastern Europe. Look, 16. Belarus occupies the midpoint between fears of Russian aggression and NATO's involvement in Eastern Europe. Belarus is vital to now Russia's national security strategy. relations between the two. As they translated close relations, Russia cannot bear to lose the Belarusian military security to the Russian armed forces and increased Belarus-Lithuanian tensions and Russian-owned reactor completion of both independently caused conflict and Russian annexation of Belarus, risking escalation into full-scale war. Radeka 16, the consequence of Lithuanian struggle against offers could be geopolitical in the next scenarios, and likely in the real Vilnius will deliver against Russian colonial construction and safety. NPP is technically role in the impending Moscow annexation of Belarus. Belarus leadership and offensive to retaliate against Vilnius, and conflict in the Baltic goes nuclear before NATO even gets involved and spills over into the rest of Europe. Goldmanis 16, the main Russian objectives can be certain control of the Baltics. Russia will continue to secure Lithuania Vilnius with the first to be attacked by Russia's doctrine of using nuclear detonation for any different further Russia would use tactical nuclear would mean World War III use of nuclear weapon conflict might spread over NATO would Russia use running counter and Belarusian annexation leads to Russian cutting off the Baltic states from the rest of Europe, causes conflict with NATO. Goldmanis 16, Belarus one of the most loyal states to Russia in conflict in the NATO Belarus will side of Russia take a direct part in force could cut off Baltic states from the Western Europe and Russia's goal is preventing Baltic states and independence on energy source by invasion and Russia NATO war due to Balticization is the most likely scenario for extinction. It spirals out of control and no one knows what's going on. Thompson 16, the possibility of nuclear war is growing. It is most likely to begin in confrontation with the Baltic states. Noted NATO would not be able to prevent Moscow from reaching its military objectives. Counterattack in the Baltics could easily be misconstrued by Moscow as stretch toward both sides. A way to use nuclear weapons. All ingredients from their president the Baltic conflicting escalating nuclear weapons. Use one. Saw one once the war began, both subject to tennis grass what was happening.
Let's talk about your advocacy. So all countries ban nuclear power that is from Russian state nuclear reactors. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the 10th one. So we're in advantage. First, let's walk through the scenario advantage one. Explain to me why U.S. hedges keep stability in the Middle East.
The last evidence, the Bresler 50 evidence, indicates that our leadership in the Middle East is key to our sort of clout globally that allows us to negotiate like peace brokerages between not only countries in the Middle East, but also check Russian aggression, solve ISIS threats, etc.
So where's the extinction scenario then? Is it this?
So the extinction scenario is Russian aggression, Syria and Libya spillover, and Islamic
What
State.
does that mean? Just don't give me buzzwords. Tell me what that means.
So our argument is that Russia now is sort of asserting aggressive tendencies. Our argument is that the U.S. can't check the kind of expansionism, otherwise Russia will sort of engage in
How would
conflict.
the U.S. check Russia's expansionism?
When we have leadership in the Middle East, we're seen as sort of a global player. If we retreat from that region, if we're less powerful in that region, then the danger of war increases because we don't have the ability to sort of check that.
What do you mean by powerful? Seems that, how is nuclear reactors in the Middle East going from Russia? I mean that U.S. is more powerful.
So it's not a question of literal physical military power. It's a question of influence within the region. Our argument is that nuclear reactors, Russian nuclear reactors in the region, are the key way in which they assert influence in the region. The Aaron et al. Evidence indicates that Rosatom is specifically tailored to create sort of governmental ties between Russia and Middle Eastern countries, and is the key way in which they exert influence. Our argument is that that influence is what is necessary in order to sort of broker peace agreements and things like that.
Okay. Let's talk about disjoiner evidence. Where disjoiner even mention things like utilitarianism for consequences, just says there should be policymakers.
So yeah, he says policymakers. He also says debate role-playing simulations help students understand different perspectives, developing policy and consequences. Argument.
So why does that mean utilitarianism?
So most non-utilitarian theories are absolute exact constraints would obviously not indicate consequences are a primary reason.
What? There's some constraint-based theories that care about consequences. It's just that the emphasis is not on consequences.
Well, policymakers definitely don't care about
They don't?
constraint-based theories. No,
But why not?
because that's what their job is. The good evidence indicates.
So this just goes up to good.
No, so I think there's other reasons. You're going to be they adhere to the Constitution, but obviously the Constitution has amendments added to it. There's never a
Yeah, they
time.
can invent it, but there's still constraints.
Right, but the point is they're not constraints. If we're here's an absolute rule, you can change whenever you want. That doesn't constitute constraints. They make changes based on utilitarian calculus.
Wait, do they? So
Yes.
The reason we have free speech is because it's going to stop nuclear war.
No, but the reason, for example, we changed the slavery, we added the 13th and 14th Amendments, is because of utilitarian concerns.
I don't think so. But, okay.
see top down?
Yeah.
Just one double.
Good, son.
Ready?
I mean, I'll do it once I get it. And top down, does that mean starting with framework or starting with first page?
Should give me a second. My computer's freezing.
Sound good? Okay.
Morality must ground upward truth guide action, otherwise everyone have different codes of all different rules. Truth exists independent of human experience, and strictly self-proving ideas from all street sides. This is the difference between operate and all poster. Things are true by observation or just true by matter transfer. For example, the cat may be on the mat can also conceive a world in which it's not the case that the cat is not in the mat on the mat. In contrast, we can never conceive a world in which a triangle doesn't have two sides. Since tautology true reject operation truth, those are just arbitrary to be, but not considered ethical theories. And arbitrary truth has applied to everyone. Absolutely universe that tomorrow becomes arbitrary. Plus, got action means ethics is trying to reduce this for the fact that 2 plus 2 equals 4 can't just be true for me, but has to be true for everyone. The violation of freedom can't be true for everyone since it's a contradiction. Extreme. And actual soul's freedom further and results in contradiction. Universal law involves considering revolutions of judgment, asserting the goodness and maximal operations and good, the limitation freedom extends to your own, thus respecting freedom. Impact cause. There are two types of contradictions: contradiction of the will and contradiction of conception. Contradiction of the will can free humans conceive of a world in which it's possible to have a contradiction of conception that doesn't exist because it's brought about due to material circumstances, but possible to have a contradiction of will be true since self-defeating. I contend the opposite is a contradiction of will, banning nuclear power wills and individuals have the freedom of violence because they're unable to act on their wills, and nuclear power is defined by the free dictionary. It's energy produced from an atomic reaction. There's something instinctively bad about nuclear power, and a ban is incoherent. Even if it has some bad effect, there's no constituent purpose of power plant. It's not created to harm people, even if it was, such as the bad use of it, so bans on central theory. Or T. Based on reducing the effort may not have been banning nuclear power, may not have been banning a nuclear reactor owned by a particular country in all, or owned by a particular state in all countries. These violations defend Russian-owned nuclear power in all countries. See, Sanchez versus Bradley from the ground. They cannot even just by this. They get the benefits of nuclear power while also banning. It means I can't do comparative analysis and do compare the benefits of the after the negative one in the world in which Russia includes from engaging in second textuality resolutions and prohibit the reduction of nuclear power, which is generically introduced to all nuclear reactors. This is relation to the that this because it's literally not what the resolution is asking. Jurisdictions is independent voter. Always fairness or education because balance to affirm or negate the resolution. However, you can't vote after doing not affirming. Indeed, vote fairness balance to the better debate. Fairness is a procedural important and equal role of ballot to the better debate. Drop the for sex abuse, dropping the article one of tanks for encouraging abuse and use competing interest these exercise act. I don't even think it's reasonable. Having a ballot just means it collapses when you interest in competing interest debate is high standards. Otherwise, it's great to respond and creating the bidders to see abusing the areas. The last argument, counterplan. AC counterclaim text. All countries except Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and Brunei, hereafter referred to as ASEAN, will prohibit the production of Russian state-owned nuclear power. The viewpoint is to compete to the counterclaims of nuclear power for all Russian state-owned nuclear power. Just offer which means that self-serve all of the assets because it gets banned in Lithuania and Belarus, and also gets banned in Belarus. And energy demand is increasing in ASEAN countries, and nuclear power is the only option to meet the demand. That's NEAN 14. Or NEAN 14. The primary energy demand in ASEAN countries will reach 501 megatons of oil an average increase of about 4.2% per year. The ADB projected that Southeast Asia's energy demand will grow 2.8% per year. The pressure posed by rapid growth in demand necessitates a quick ramping up of the electricity and generation capacity. The only economic low carbon baseload technology to mitigate the risk of electricity imbalances is nuclear power. And these countries need nuclear power from Russia. That's WNA 16. Emerging countries do not have the expertise for nuclear power. Must rely on countries such as Russia. State-owned nuclear companies in Russia have led in offering the world
and offering the nuclear power plants to emerging countries with finance. You can see also the relevant table. That's including the speech doc. Look for the speech doc Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos are all on the list of countries that plans to build the Russian state of nuclear power. Nuclear power can help their energy security. It avoids destruction of fossil fuel prices. Nuclear energy is the only alternative that's needed to. The only way for a country to improve its energy security is diversification of energy. Diversifying energy was pronounced as one of the 6 key national strategies. Hydrogen, thermal, wind power, not viable. Nuclear power would be the most resilient to fluctuations of prices. The price of nuclear fuel is not related to fossil fuels. The nuclear energy is better than any of the alternatives. And 3, for fossil fired plants, the major portion of emissions come from the combustion of nuclear produce only small amounts of indirect emissions. Nuclear power is the most favorable source for the dimension of the life cycle of greenhouse gas emissions. Nuclear should be considered the most effective technology in decarbonizing the electricity sector. Asian and ASEAN countries are the most vulnerable to climate change. That's the N4. 563 million people live along the coastlines in Southeast Asia. These populations are highly vulnerable to silver rights. Agriculture accounts for 43% of total employment in Southeast Asia, contributing 11% GDP. For whatever reason, it's underlined. GDP is whatever. And nuclear safety report speakers shame itself any of their impacts. It's in 5. The IAEA revised a series of safety standards related to the safety of power plant design. The IAEA also revised safety standards governing the transport of radioactive materials, storage, and spent fuel, and disposal of radioactive waste. Vietnam has already started building the first of its two reactors in collaboration with Russia. Vietnam is hopefully becoming the first country to operate safe and viable nuclear reactors in ASEAN. And strong ASEAN is key to preventing extinction through nuclear war. That's Rajada 92. Should the new region offer its collapse, that we will be inevitably entering the dark age of World War III, fought with nuclear weapons, international civil, racial, and religious conflict growing by the number. I think estimates are still centers. The eye of the storm is creating and managing ASEAN verges on the miraculous. None of the new regions are not taking shape of global blessing. We must know how to handle these new regions intelligently. They could be steps toward global peace, progress, cultural development, or they could also be fuel World War III. World War III, should it ever be unleashed, would be the last war. And go to DC, starting on framework. Their state on the state obligations are great. I can agree we have functional obligations. However, that obviously does not mean that you no longer adhere to offer a trade. For example, just because I'm a policymaker doesn't mean that 2 + 2 now equals 5, or a triangle no longer is two-sided, which means that they still have an ethical obligation not violate freedom, even if they have a functional obligation to do other things else, which means that you should prefer an ethical obligation because it's not really binding, whereas a functional thing where something being functional doesn't make sense in the context of government, because it's not like if a government passes non-utilitarian policy, it would fail to be a government. It would still be a government, which means that the arguments incoherent. They also say that the state doesn't have intent to pull. The state doesn't have to have intent, it just has to have something that's constitutive in action, i.e. it's constitutive of banning nuclear power that violates freedom. Now, good. The first point is that it is off policy. Just because government chooses status quo doesn't mean they should do it. Second point is that they're only one providing these utilities. It means that we aggregate. We can also aggregate under conduct, i.e. we aggregate that banning nuclear power will violate freedom. The third point is that it's empirically false. Constitutions mean that we have constraints. That's also the reason why you provide government. Even if we amend it, it's not for utilitarian causes. I think at least they can't prove that. And the fourth point is, actually, that's fine. You can go to Bostrom. First point is that Bostrom assumes that we care about and sees the various positions of countries. The second point is that it conflicts post and pre-fiat. Just because we die in a Coast Guard, well, doesn't mean that we're dead in this round. Also, if I win the NC, there's no uncertainty, which means that you don't even have to go to Bostrom. Then joiner first. If I win the NC, it means that it's bad education because I frame what is ethically good. The second point is that it assumes good. If I win that policymakers aren't utilitarian, then it means that you obviously don't with the joiner.
What ground did you lose for reading this out?
I lost like things like warming, anything about the
Wait,
US.
you lost warming? You literally read warming impacts on the
I mean, it's more nuanced than that. Like, you forced me into narrower ground. It's not that I have no ground.
Narrower ground.
Yeah.
So the violation on the abuse story is that you have slightly narrower ground.
So that you significantly limit ground
Okay.
about the countries that I created. Obviously, not every
The
country
counterpoint.
does.
I don't understand any of the internal links in this. Why does energy security make it key, or like why is that the key thing that causes stability in these countries that would stop them from going to nuclear war?
So it is that right now there are massive price fluctuations in these countries, which would mean that. So it is that there
Wait, what are the massive price fluctuations caused by?
caused by oil markets and things like that.
Wait, so oil markets cause price fluctuations, and then when you drop a ton of nuclear power plants, make them pay billions of dollars, their economy will just even out?
What? No. It's not, it means,
No?
It's not that they even. You're misunderstanding. It's not that they even out. It's that it would stop the fluctuations in the price fluctations in the economy. It's
Okay,
like
but it
you have a stable source
obviously
of energy.
costs
That's not
a ton and takes a long time to build nuclear reactors. My question is,
The point is that they've already done it.
they've
right?
already
They're
built
planning.
nuclear
They're
reactors.
planning.
in
They already
places.
haven't started the plans to build a nuclear reactor.
Wait, so they've started the plans. They haven't already built reactors.
Let's see what evidence was. It was. Yeah, so Neon 5 says that Vietnam's already started building one of the first two reactors.
Okay, so say they finish it in like 10, 15 years. Why does that not, A, cost them a ton of money to show your impacts, or B, just like take a long time and like avoid
Because
the
Russia
impacts?
is giving them loans and things like that, which means that
Russia's giving, okay. The impact card, why is A scene key to like global stability?
So the evidence in I read indicates that it's a very that there's a lot of conflict going on, which means that
Who do they go to war with?
who they go to war with, like each other.
Each other. So Russian.
fight
So
over
the only
resources.
reason. So the card outlines international civil, racial, and religious conflicts are growing by number. Why does it have to do with energy security in any of those countries?
Because it is that they would fight over the econ collapse means that there's mass instability, which would cause a war.
Read to me a line in any of the rest of the net benefit where it says that a nuclear power plant would resolve the international civil, racial, and religious conflicts that your impact evidence says triggers that war.
Obviously, it's not like they build nuclear powers and everything, or nuclear power plants and everything is peaceful, but rather
Okay,
that's
so
also a
that
link that would
sounds
cause
like you don't have a dissat. The
The
stuff on case, how can you aggregate under like
cool. If I ban nuclear power in a country, it violates everyone's freedom. I have aggregated.
yeah, but violating one's freedom is an infinite violation. How can you aggregate?
Yeah, you just aggregate that. Aggregate just means to like look at the whole means. If you look that you violate everyone's freedom. Just because it's an infinite violation doesn't mean you can't aggregate.
The arguments on Bostrom are it assumes like consequences, and it assumes the state should be policymakers, and then no uncertainty if you win the NC.
Arguments on Bostrom, wait, say them again.
So I have it assumes that like consequentialism is relevant. It assumes that policymakers use consequentialism, and there be no uncertainty if you won the NC.
And it was a question for you.
Okay, I don't understand the argument. What does that mean?
Bostrom says that in the face of ethical uncertainty, then we should default to extinction due to preserve future value. If we vote AF, we obviously don't, or stop, or if we vote neg, we obviously don't die. So it means that there's no value.
will be
T, case, NC.
T case and pick, you said?
Yep.
Case starting where?
The case will start on the advantages of the framework.
Which advantage?
The hedge advantage.
Sorry, I floated like a policy issue. Each advantage is one sheet.
T. The case, starting with the second or first advantage, then the framework, then the NC proper, then the pick. You good? There you go.
Counter-interpretation, the animated ban on nuclear power countries and for Russian state on nuclear solves all their offensive systems, world's largest nuclear spy on the core. The topic latest predictable ground defending in depth benefits. One makes the app make the app defend a ban on all nuclear power means that that can reach this as or to pick out of any corporation that outweighs the limits of offense A. The next reactive win on framework generics. The app's gonna pick it B7 cell 4 6 times Q 1 hour. That means that 1 hour can restart all with the offense against a picking 2 contextual discussion of different corporations, different reactor types, political motivation, like why Washington was supposed to discuss by assuming that they are the same destroys advocacy skills, creating real world solutions and outweighs this key to fix intellectual problems in the real world. And C, 3 is ground. No one defensively can ban all policy rules within the context of as if corporations is possible to affirm 4 solves about everything they need. Read everything they read links to are app warming, decel politics, colonialism, K's, MC's, everything and outweighs people under our control can control people doing a good prep, but under this mixed structure possible to affirm on the semantic stuff. One, you wouldn't the app is not debating another topic. It's 99% close stereotype. So the 30% undebatable vote absence debatability is on the same level. Sexuality, since jurisdiction debate 2, jurisdiction relies on clash. The only reason we have a topic so we have balanced education. Their interp destroys the inter means of bad. 3 jurisdictions something made up developed doesn't have they from the top just do 1 just vote on non-topical camps all the time. Their ground state of day they get a really good nuanced ground. Armenia grid disad, Russia econ disad, or they pick that they read and that solves all their offense. The case debate you conceded both advantages. You conceded that every single time Russia puts up a reactor in puts up a reactor in the Middle East that causes our influence to go down and theirs to go up. And you conceded that U.S. leadership in the region is the only thing that stops sort of worldwide problems that we that are legitimate in that region allows us to peace broker. The rest of other things solves the net benefit to the dissad because if we have power, we have the power in that region. Our leadership allows us to solve the conflict in the A scene. The framework warrants. First, the Bostrom evidence is the wrong Bostrom evidence you responded to. First, you said it assumes consequences matter. No, it just says that we should preserve our ability to make future judgments. You say you can place pre post fiat, but it is a question of what state obligation do. You conceded this question of state obligations, not judge obligations. Even if you make a distinction between those obligations, means it does not matter that we conflate pre and post fiat. Your last argument is that if you win the NC, there's no uncertainty. But this is not an ethical uncertainty argument. This is a question of preserving future good, which means you win the Bostrom argument. You prioritize extinction. Worst comes in the worst case scenario, the donor evidence is not responded to. We say that policy solutions give advocacy skills, and that means that it is the only portable skill from debate. Means it outweighs NC proper. One decisions to give up their give the rights for the instructions about governments that are not inalienable status of foreign to maximize citizens' interests. 2 active mission distinction in terms of governments. A, when the government doesn't pass a law without allowing something creates a permissible, that seems okay. We're allowed to the government to wear hats because they ruled against B omission is willed in action. You actively choose not to take an action, and interpretation of the NEC reads an NC that in terms of the NC must be legitimable violation. The NC is unturnable, and we'd have to prove that an object is constitutively evil, which is impossible. You can prove the new power is intended for good good use in one instance, and we lose the standards of reciprocity. NC creates a 2-1 burden structure. This is taking offense, which against which kills fairness. So drop the argument. 1 error theory outweighs 7 4 6 times Q means that 1 error is impossible and universalizability. 1 you can't scrap a lot of yourself in a content sentence. Instead of don't kill, I could say don't cool, which is except anyone except for Evan, which is universalizable. The picks are a voting issue. They skew the 1 error time and make it impossible to affirm this 764 times, which means I can't restart the round of the 1 AR permutation. Do both. There are no reactors currently being built except for anywhere except for Vietnam. As of cross-6 means we can just exclude that in the pick. There's no net benefit. There's no net benefit. There's an all cause in the impact card that says that civil problems, things like religious conflict, causes nuclear war, not energy insecurity. The case is a disadd to the pick because of the Sovicoal evidence. The Overton evidence indicates they're incredibly corrupt, which means that even if there are safety concerns by general governing agency, which your evidence talk about, in the context of Rosedome, there's no safety checks. They're horrible. They blow up and kill lots of people.
What's your first argument on the NC?
Wait.
Or NC. First argument on the NC.
First argument on the NC
Was it just third one?
yeah, third one. I read 3 to 5, and then
You delete everything.
read all this, read all that. I didn't read. I didn't read this verbatim. I made the same argument. Made the same argument with this verbatim.
Can you stop? So like, I don't think you had the flash sheet at all. So maybe start off with this.
Here.
I mean, like I'm saying, he doesn't really have to flash sheet the analytics anyway. So.
I'm not asking.
Oh, okay. I thought you were asking the arguments he made on that. See which one is hard.
And then these arguments were made on the case, but not read verbatim. And then the last two cases are universal step one stuff. So 2 and 3, the second argument and right secret.
Simplification of check things. Just not valid, but you extend it.
The argument on Gooden in the 1AR is that Bostrom is a prior question because it's not a question of the state's
did not.
obligations, it's a question of how like, we should evaluate companies.
So we're just going to be NC. We're going to start on the shell that came out of nowhere. Then we're going to go to the AC.
Say that one more time. NCAC.
Yeah, starting on the shell.
Wait, what's after that?
So NC shell. So the shell that you read on the NC, and then I don't know if you flipped on the NC, but wherever you flipped that, and then the NC.
Yeah, there's no document, right?
No doubt.
Yeah, we're not sending it. Yeah, cool. Okay. Everyone good? First, they don't have any violation. They don't have any reason. They don't have any violation because they don't have any reason for why the NC is not turnable. They just say they cannot prove that nuclear reactors are intrinsically bad. However, first point is that there's no reason why they would have to do that. There's no reason why they would have to do that to turn the NC. The second point is that there's no reason why they are not able to prove why nuclear power is intrinsic to that. They can make reasons for why nuclear power always produces radiation that always harms people. The problem is that they did not make any of those arguments. It's not my fault that they chose not to make to not make arguments that could potentially turn the NC. The second point is that they don't even have to show that it is intrinsic to that. They just have to. They could also go for reasons why the NC is a contradiction in conception, why contradiction in conception outweigh contradiction in the will. They could do that. They could also make reasons why the AC is hindering a hindrance, which would justify doing the F, which means that there are definitely terms that they could have read. It's not my fault that they chose to undercover on the framework debate. Now, additionally, even if you think that I do violate, first, AC counterinterpretation. The AC counterinterpretation deck may read turns may read a Kantian NC and turns to the app, and also read reasons, that's fine. BIME, I read a Kantian also returns to the app. C for my interpretation, C actually challenging that from multiple perspectives, which forces them to actually forces them to consider their position from which forces them to consider their position from different points of view, rather than just always sticking to like things like utilitarianism. You're always going to have the attention, which means that's a horrible norm for debate. Also, always in strength of even if there's a small skew of fairness that occurs, the fact that there's always a risk that they could read the NC, or at the very least they could always try to do wing or read things like episode of obviously prove that the abuse is minimal in this instance and certainly solves. So go to NC. They've conceded too much of the NC to be winning this debate. They've conceded that morality has to be grounded in operative guide action, which means that morality has to be grounded in operative guide action. Otherwise, everyone have to follow different rules, which means that morality is unable to fulfill the most basic function. Morality at the most basic levels is a guide to action. If they are unable to give a concrete guide to action, that means that their ethic fails. They concede that anything that's written things that are true ob posterior can't be a guide to action because those things are always circumstantial, and which means it can't give you a concrete guide to making ethical decisions. Now go to Engstrom. You can see that truth has to be universal and has to apply to everyone equally. For example, it doesn't make sense for me to say that 2 + 2 = 4 for me, but not for him. Rather, it has to be that all things that are true operate, and things that are true have to apply. It has to be true for everyone. That takes out their policy making argument, because it doesn't matter whether you're a policymaker. You still have to adhere the truth. Just because you're a policymaker doesn't mean that things like triangles no longer have 3 sides. They've also conceded the weighing. That means that there's no way they can, which means that I have 100% into my contention at this point. So that extends that there's contradictions in conception brought out to material circumstances. Even if they try to blow up in the TOR about how they might try to violate nuclear power might somehow violate freedom, that's only because it's a contradiction in conception. You can always conceive of a world in which it's possible to have a nuclear power plant that does not violate freedom, whereas you can never conceive of a world in which banning nuclear power does not violate freedom, because banning nuclear power, it is intrinsic to the will of banning nuclear power such as it violates freedom, which means that it's a contradictory will, and they concede why that comes first. Now they extend the contention, which was also conceded that banning nuclear power is a contradictory will, since you always will that individuals have freedom violated. They've also conceded the free definition that nuclear power supply is energy produced from an atomic reaction, which is nothing stitched about the definition that has to violate freedom. For example, you can always imagine something like a nuclear power plant somewhere out in space that doesn't violate someone's freedom, which means that at this point they have simply not done enough analysis to prove why they would actually be able to have any turns on the NC. Now go to the mistake. They say that citizens give up certain rights to the government. First point is that there's a warrant for why they do that. Second point is that there's no way we can possibly verify that every citizen's given up their rights. The third point is that even if they do that, that doesn't justify why the government would be okay to violate the rights in that given would be justified violating the rights in that given instance. The fourth point is that even if they do that, that would just mean that these citizens are Kantians or something like that. It wouldn't prove why we should not be Kantians. It would just mean that in those cases those people are not Kantians, but not why it's good for them to not be Kantians. Which means that if I'm winning my friend, it would take out that argument. Then go to no active mission distinction. The no active mission distinction doesn't make any sense. They say that whenever you don't take an action, you must necessarily will to not take that action. However, for that is incoherent. Whenever you don't take an action, the entire point of not taking action is that you do not will anything, which means that's literally impossible for you to violate. It's literally impossible for you to violate freedom, which means that their argument here is absolutely incoherent. They also say, the second problem with their argument against the active mission distinction is that the active mission distinction is necessary for being able to actually resolve violations of freedom. For example, if there was no active mission distinction, that would just mean that it would create paralysis, because there's no way that you could evaluate anything, because there would be infinite violations of freedom, which means that the active mission distinction is a consequent of my framework, which means that if I'm winning my framework, it necessarily means that there has to be an active mission distinction, and also means that their argument doesn't take on my framework, because if I win my framework, the logical deduction from that would be that there has to be an active mission distinction. Then go to
you can't universalize things. The argument for why you can't universalize things is absolutely horrible. Just as we could call it killing quilling, however, that obviously is not responsive to the NC because it's not responsive to the action taken. You can call it whatever you want. However, at the end of the day, you're still killing someone that you intend to do something. And the intent to do that action would still not be universalizable. Also, sure, I'll kick the pick. They said the implication. They said in CX the implication of picks or voting issue was that you just reject the pick, not drop the debate or no implication. So go to AC framework. They can see the overview. That doesn't matter if they're winning their framework because policymakers still have to abide by powerful reason. They've also considered the argument against Gooden that is all fallacy just because policymakers should set for this something they should do. That also takes up their extension of joiner because they say that policymakers is good for advocacy. So it's not very question what a good policymaker would be. Their argument, if I win the NC, then obviously it would mean that a good policymaker would not be a utilitarian, but rather it would be Kantian, which means that I control the internal of your advocacy skills, and also would mean that you prefer my framework advocacy skills. Not the only way they can win is Boston. They say they're the wrong arguments. However, no, obviously all these arguments are responsive to Boston, so you can extend the argument that assumes consequentialism, i.e., assumes that we care about end states of affairs. They just say their only response is that all they're saying is that they prefer distinction. Yes, that is the end state of affairs. That exactly proves my argument. They've also continued to post some freak out distinction just because you vote neg. Obviously, this means that we all die, which means that we can still know that the AC is true and we shouldn't negate, or the AC is false and we should negate.
The order will be the case, the MC.
Case starting where? Sorry.
Case, like, advantage, then framework, then MC. Ready?
Every Russian reactor that goes to the Middle East takes our influence and destroys our ability to be a leader in the region, which destroys our credibility around the world, makes it impossible for doing those peace treaties. Russian expansion is spirals out of control and causes nuclear extinction succeeded after their main aim. Risk of extinction means we win this debate. The joiner evidence is not sufficiently responded to. You say that it's just a question of being what kind of policymakers we should be, but the joiner evidence makes two specific claims. The first is that policymaking in the context of like comparing policies or sort of post-bad advocacies are good, and the 1AR, the joiner has conceded that the 1AR extension of advocacy skills being the only out-of-round impact, the only portable skill, which means it outweighs everything else. If we get advocacy skills from policymaking, which the NC obviously doesn't give us, we've learned nothing about policy from there, then you should vote negative, you should vote affirmative. The second claim that the joiner makes is specific to consequences, that we should prioritize them over sort of will, questions of will, because it is the only way in which we're able to sort of conceptualize how our policies function within the real world, and the only way that we're able to get those advocacy skills. Advocacy skills conceded as outweighing a risk of offense to those advocacy skills questions means you automatically default at the second argument is Bostrom. You say that extinction is an end state, but the Bostrom argument is not a question of us prioritizing the number of people. It's a question of us prioritizing our future ability to sort of ruminate on questions of ethics, which means it's an internal link argument to your things. Bostrom says in order to preserve the future value of people, the only way we can do so is if they are alive. It is a prior question to the NC, and that argument is conceded. The next argument we make is that it assumes things like good, which is that policymakers are sort of consequentialists. But no, our argument is that it just assumes that we need to have life in order to access things. You say conflates pre and post beyond. We don't die in the real world, but our argument is that you conceded state obligations that we have to worry about what the state should do, even if you change those obligations. And our argument is that change is wrong, and that you should prefer, you should always default to the state sort of preserving people, because that control can turn into any other kind of obligation they can have, which means all of the state obligation things still flows out. The MC proper there, the first argument is the last one in the 1AR that explains you cannot ascribe a law to yourself in a Kantian sense because that maxim is impossible to universalize. You say no, it's just about the action of what we call it, but then there's no way in which we can universalize any individual maxim because that just justifies excuses from that maxim. For example, you could say, please don't kill yourself, or I will not kill, I will quill, which justifies a different maxim than it is. You cannot sort of, you cannot pretend like, oh, Kant doesn't mince words, or this is not a question, because it's obviously a question of sort of the specifics within Kantian maxims that are only universalizable. The next argument he makes are that you need at the top of the flow, on the upper true stuff, that we need a concrete guide to action. Bostrom obviously provides that. He says, avoid distinction at all costs. Joyner also obviously provides that. Avoid a sort of against policy making. The next argument to make is that we need ethics, otherwise we need ethics even care about policy making. Still a question of ethicals. Well, we've answered this on the case, and why you have uniquely not given us this kind of policy making education, which means that a risk of office to any of those things is sufficient to affirm. You can the last argument is that is this a question of act or omission. You say that it causes policy paralysis, but no. Our argument is that when states specifically choose not to act, they will all sorts of problems because it is their duty to prevent them.
All right. Fine, dude, it was off camera. Lawrence, there's like a message of some kind on the computer.
What? Yeah, I was gonna turn it around since I know it's
I'm letting you know there's kind of a.
Oh yeah. Whoops. Well, should have enough storage to get this RFD on, right? Sorry, thanks. Ignore that.
What? I literally made my damn decision.
If there, that might be like, if you go over T, it gets spread up. It could be just
Don't go too far. Submit it. Yeah. There we go. All right. Congratulations to both debaters for making it. Oh, I got to move. Congratulations to both debaters for making it the finals of the Art of Text Invitational. The decision is a 2-1 for Strake Jesuit.
I sat.
So what was the decision? 2-1 for Richard.
So I sat. Maybe it's a paradigmatic thing. So the first so the 1AR starts with like a minor property rights violation, not worth killing everyone in the world. I'm not even sure really why it's a rights violation. I kind of get like weighing in place of like actual impact to the NC. So like it's possible to imagine something in space, whatever, where there could perhaps be a nuclear power that wouldn't cause anyone harm. But it's one less thing people are able to will, I guess. So I'm not really sure. Maybe it's like I said, maybe it's paradigmatic. I don't resolve framework 100%. So I think that there's probably good reasons that both of these fail. Some abstract universal theory that will always be true in every instance. So, but for me, it's really I don't see. I mean, it's hard to. It's a high burden to win that consequences are completely irrelevant, rather than why their ridiculous link chain isn't true. So I'm not sure why people decide to try to win that no consequences are relevant, rather than to win that this consequence won't happen. And I think that I likewise would like to see the app go for turns to the NC as well, because I don't think those aren't relevant. But I'm not sure why it's I'm not sure why it's really a contradiction in the will. And I also have a lot of questions about these things. So I don't know is it? I'm not sure that that people can prescribe maxims that are actually universal and that will actually give some guys action. There's sort of not a lot of stuff on the active mission distinction, but you say your answer to that is that if you win your framework, that proves that there can be. Well, I mean, but then it's I guess we're kind of in a your answer to Bostrom is that it assumes that it starts with the assumption that consequences are relevant. I do start with the assumption that consequences are relevant. I don't think that's a bad place to be. I'm not sure what the world would look like if it wasn't. I think probably most of the people who advance psychometric theories think that consequences are probably relevant, but there's just things that maybe matter more. So like I don't want to like conflate things, and I hate it when people give like strategic advice around as a fill-in for an explanation of the content of the decision, but I have no idea why you didn't go for the pick. Like the only answer to it is like some disadvantage making things are unsafe with no impact. It solves like for Middle East, the AF advantages about the Middle East, which it solves for. They're about Belarus, which it solves for. So I didn't really read your app unless it's absolute trash. These impacts that you have for like oil defense and stuff have to outweigh any like thing about why like Russian stuff's unsafe in general. That's not really explained. Picks are good, especially when it's something specific you've done and researched well for this app. So I kind of thought I expected that would be the 2 and R, that it would be a very easy make decision. But then when it said it was this, and it's just like maybe I guess it worked out. So maybe just your panel, but I kind of feel like it was. But for me, it's just like I'm gonna weigh unless the app kicks util and decides to just go for turn CNC and tries to explain why the contingents turn the NC and they never do. Then I'm gonna kind of evaluate the debate through both frameworks to the extent they're one. If I give like 99% credence to the NC, it seems like I'm gonna really have an explanation of why. It's true that he doesn't even try to turn the NC, but I'm not really sure why it's even bad under your framework. And it seems like there's like I get substitution for that for weighing turns he didn't make against like why it's bad. And meanwhile, like the extinction of all life on Earth, which almost certainly wouldn't happen if we go to F, isn't contested. So it seems that that reasons that I'm not going to resolve the framework debate 100% before I look at the contention level, and so I don't really see a way to go there.
So my biggest problem is that I feel like a lot of the 2AR is new, especially in terms of warrants. I feel like the 1AR is pretty light on framework. Absent a sort of epistemic modesty argument, I feel like I have to resolve the framework debate one way or another, but I totally get why.
Why?
Well, so I don't think that.
I don't think Evan. I
don't really think Evan makes an argument as to why even if.
Why do you?
Because I think that I have to make a decision under one framework. I don't know how I would make it under either, and Evan doesn't really make that argument. And maybe that's a paradigmatic thing.
I mean, it's like sometimes debaters debate that way, and then it's like
they're
both debating as if they first have to justify utilism comprehensive ethical theory to have an impact, and it makes sense. But Evan's not doing that. He starts with an overview that's like. I also think that he's winning the framework debate pretty definitively. I think that you're conceding a couple of different things. First is that morality has to be a priori, not based on circumstances, which means that it has to be some sort of a priori guide to action in order to function. Now, your only response to this is really that Bostrom is a guide to action, but one, Bostrom still assumes that futures consequences matter. Two, this also isn't a guide to action, right? That doesn't tell us how we should act in circumstances where the end states aren't extinction. Let's say I want to decide whether or not to, throw a plate at Horowitz's head. That wouldn't tell me how to act in that instance, which means I don't really get how it is a guide to action in the first place. Which means that already under the sort of I don't want to call it a meta ethic. I don't know, the sort of presupposition of how morality has to operate. You're not really meeting that basic burden, which means that a lot of the analysis you do in the 2AR isn't really responsive to the 2NR. In addition, I think there are a couple of other problems. One, I think you're not responding to this claim that's like all of your evidence is descriptive of the way that things are happening now, but not really descriptive of the way things ought to be. Which means that if I think that yes, policymakers might do things in a certain way right now, that doesn't mean they ought to do it in a certain way, or that is the moral way to do it, or a moral way to take that action. Which means that even if you're winning this argument as to why it's key to advocacy skills, one, I don't know why those are good advocacy skills. Two, I think he's making a pretty persuasive argument that's just like, we make policies based upon a Kantian ethic, and that means that we just have advocacy skills based on Kantianism, right? Which means, absent a sort of framing as to why states uniquely have to evaluate consequences, which that is the active-omission distinction debate, I'll get there in a second. Other than that, Warren, I don't really see a way you sort of win that debate. Now, the active-omission distinction debate, I think you're just behind. You're conceding two responses. One is that
if that were true, there would be infinite violations of freedom because there are always instances which we're not acting, which means that it can't provide a guide to action because it would cause paralysis. And I think that that argument in and of itself is a pretty good reason as why states aren't uniquely obligated to evaluate consequences. The only other warrant for why consequences might matter is the joiner argument in the 2AR, but I think that you don't extend the consequences warrant in the 1AR. You only extend the argument that's like, we need advocacy skills, policy solutions create advocacy skills in outways because it's theoretical. I think that the theoretical aspect of it he's co-opting because he's saying that we simply create advocacy skills that are based on Now, the last place I think I might be able to vote for you is, on the framework debate, is this argument at the rarity objection, the you can't universalize certain circumstances, blah, 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 blah. I think his response in the 2NR is pretty on point where he's like, even if we can't, if we were to universalize that action, those actions would still be considered bad because they would still violate freedom. And I still think there are other things that, even if you're winning that objection, I don't think that that necessarily takes out the entirety of the NC because he still has this sort of freedom as a side constraint argument, which obviously does have to do universal self-advisability. But I think there's still enough defense on your framework to where that's not just like a game winner for me, right? I still think there is I can conceive of a world in which, even if there are very specific actions taken, that we still, if it violates freedom, we wouldn't take that action, right? So I think that overall, he's pretty ahead on the framework debate, and I think that that's largely a product of the 1AR sort of undercovering it a little bit. And the last thing I'll say is the contention was conceded. There was no contestation. That's a question in my mind of whether or not it actually violates freedom wasn't particularly relevant.
I'll wait for one. So I don't see much of a difference from what Rod said. I think that there are two pieces of obviously affirmatives going for the 2AR. The first one is the joiner evidence, and the second one is the Foster evidence. So on the joiner evidence,
I got to talk about Foster. Remember that?
On the joiner evidence, he makes this argument in the 2NR, this weighing argument that's basically like, the is-ought fallacy reconceptualizes what makes a good policymaker. A good policymaker would just be a Kantian. That's the internal link to advocacy skills. You're just like, joiner's advocacy skills, that outweighs everything else, da-da-da-da. But you're not answering this argument about what makes a good policymaker. So insofar as that's true, that means that the negative is just winning joiner. Yeah, sure, absolutely. We should teach advocacy skills. The way we teach advocacy skills, we should all become Kantians, right? There's no reason why that means we need to be consequentialist. Insofar as that's true, that means that, I guess it's like a link turn or something, but whatever. And the second one is the Bostrom evidence. The Bostrom evidence, I wasn't 100% sure how to evaluate. I think you're both winning some arguments. I think you're winning basically like that Bostrom might be the first question of ethics, but he's probably winning he's probably winning the conflation of the pre-post yet distinction, and he's certainly winning that Bostrom definitely does care about consequences. So I just basically turned into a wash. Insofar as that's true.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, can you explain the pre-fiat post-fiat distinction?
Voting neg doesn't end the world.
Yeah.
Voting app doesn't violate the right. Wait, what?
No, that was the argument.
Yeah.
Wait, can you explain it then? Like how it answered the argument?
How it answered the argument?
Yeah, like how does that answer Bostrom? You said he's slightly ahead on it, and that was like a deal breaker for.
Well, I think the bigger deal breaker was the assuming consequentialism part than the pre-post fiat distinction argument. And that argument I think is much clearer. Just like Bostrom's argument is like, we assume that consequences matter, and the most important consequence is extinction. And he's like, there's no reason why we need to care about that, and that assumes that there's an end state. Insofar as that's true, then that's there. I think he's probably winning. I think the app is winning some offense on Bostrom, but I think the negative also winning some defense on Bostrom. So like, there's a risk of Bostrom being true, but I don't think it's enough to overcome what I'm about to talk about on the NC front. So let's move the NC front. I agree with Rod that you're winning. I guess it's a meta-ethical argument, but basically I would say it's more an epistemology argument about how there are absolute moral truths. Insofar as there are absolute moral truths, you're totally conceding Engstrom, which means that we have to look to freedom first. Insofar as we're looking to freedom first, that means that that's a question of what both individuals, and I think in the way he's explaining it, states are obligated, which means that that's there as well. That means that I'm clearly looking for the NC framework, or clearly looking for the negative framework. Insofar as I'm clearly the negative framework, negative is clearly winning the contention because the affirmative is not contesting the contention. The only other issue is the act-omission distinction arguments. I don't think you're doing enough work in the 2AR that I feel comfortable voting on it as a means, insofar as he's winning so many other things. So that, and then also exactly what Rod said, I think that's more or less very similar to sort of how I looked at the act-omission stuff.
There you go. You have any questions?
Not really.
Thank you.